first witnessed factory farming 17 years ago, and the conditions the animals were in were obscene. Animals are treated like machines purely for profit.
In all the years that I've been connected with the agricultural and food industries of Great Britain, I am completely convinced that there is no deliberate cruelty in the humane slaughter of animals for human consumption.
It is my belief that money never excuses cruelty. I also believe that a vegetarian diet is much healthier, and that it is central to stopping environmental destruction and world hunger.
To me, meat eating is still one of the great pleasures of life.
Hello.
Hello, and how are you?
I'm fine.
Great. Now I know what you're going to do with me, my dear. You're going to attempt to castigate and condemn this canny old Geordie Northumbrian when I categorically state that there is no cruelty whatsoever in the preparation and the processing of lambs, sheep, chickens, cattle, pigs, processing and preparing all these wonderful meaty animals for the 3 meals a day and a bit of supper for Mrs. Great Britain, Mr. Great Britain, not forgetting the bairns. Absolutely wonderful food, providing the essential nutrients we need for healthy life and living.
I think that most people in Britain, or certainly many more people in Britain today, are aware that there's an awful lot of cruelty in modern agricultural methods.
Not really, my dear,
I'll
really.
just give you an example of things that I've seen for myself.
Yes.
I first went vegetarian many years ago now. In fact, I was only 15 at the time.
Rather young to make a definite decision, was it?
Yeah,
not?
it was. In fact, I went round what's known as a battery unit, a battery hen farm where the hens are kept for eggs.
One of the most comfortable and humane ways of producing nutritious eggs 365 days of the year in the cheapest possible manner to give...
Well, let me describe what I saw, and people can decide for themselves whether they think it's comfortable or not. Basically, you walk into this huge shed. It's got no natural lighting at all. The stench of the place is the first thing that hits you. And I had a headache within seconds because of all the droppings from the hens, which are not cleaned out. They're kept in these cages, which are about the size of a small microwave oven. And you could fit about one hen in that, and she couldn't even stretch her wings. But instead of that, they don't just keep one, they keep 5 hens in each cage.
Indeed they do.
They're on a sloping white floor, so that the eggs roll down. Cages, just wire all around them. Now, these hens in the wild, the jungle fowl, which I've seen in places like Indian rainforests, they lay about 12 eggs in a year. Now, these poor old hens in these cages have been so manipulated by human beings that they're laying 300 eggs a year.
Well, you see, the point is...
Just let me finish what I saw.
Yes, indeed, carry on, my love.
Just let me what I saw. Because they're laying so many eggs in a year, they actually use the calcium from their bones in the shells. They leach out the calcium of the bones, and 1/3 of these hens have got broken bones at any one time. And this first farm I went in, I was in there for about, at the most, 5 minutes, because I couldn't stand it, and I saw loads of dead hens in the cages. They hadn't bothered to move. And so that was when I first decided, I'm not going to pay anybody to keep these animals in these conditions. And it was horrific. And everybody that went round there agreed it was truly the worst thing that they'd ever seen.
Well,
and I've seen it many times since over the years.
And you're a very sincere young woman, as indeed you should be. You remind me of my wife in many instances. But the battery house you went into, there should be no smell whatsoever of droppings, because there are fully automated, movable trays that take away the droppings 24 hours a day. And these happy hens, they're sitting all amongst their friends, clucking to each other. Chuck, 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 chuck. They're in an atmosphere, dear, of a balmy summer's day.
No, that is not true at all.
They've got constant food, they've got constant water in front of them, they've got a balanced diet which contains somewhere in the region about 14% protein. I don't want to bore you with technicalities, but the calcium in the food is enough to keep them happy. And today, Safeways, Sainsbury's, Asda, all the supermarkets, they want eggs, constant quantities of quality graded produce coming into their stores every day of the year. They want to keep the flow of food into the supermarket shelves constant. So you have to have a controlled, constant environment. Now, you're talking, my love, about the jungle fowl in the Indian rainforest. I mean, I've never seen an Indian rainforest, so I don't know. But I live up in North Northumberland, lovely little village called Sea Houses. I used to keep free-range hens. I used to keep Welsummers, Barney Veldes, White Wyandottes, Rhode Island Reds. And you know what happened come the end of September, right until the end of March? The wind was sweeping in from the North Sea. It was coming down from the Cheviots, blanched with rain. These poor hens huddling together. The majority of the food intake had to go to keep themselves warm. There was no eggs. We didn't get any eggs. And you can't satisfy supermarket orders if you haven't got any eggs.
No, you can't. You cannot satisfy.
On the 17th of February, a year last the 17th of February, a terrible disaster struck my small flock of 27 hens. I got up one morning, got the dog out, went up to the hen run, and do you know what was there? 17 decimated, destroyed carcasses. They'd been ravaged to death by Reynold the fox. And
well, that's
disease hits them.
Free range hens, they live a much more natural life if you keep them genuinely.
Bitten off by a fox.
Of course, it's natural. That's the natural order of things. That
well, of course,
foxes
we
eat
keep
hens.
the hunt going, to keep the foxes down. But
what is totally unnatural is to keep.
Nowadays.
What is totally unnatural is to keep 5 hens to a cage where they cannot move. Where
they cannot move,
they cannot even stretch their wings, they're denied the most basic freedom. And more than that, if you just let me speak, please don't interrupt.
Yes, carry on, my love. Yes, go on.
They can't stretch their wings, where they're fed an unnatural diet. Yes, it gives them all the nutrients, but they still leach all the calcium out, they have broken bones. And then they're slaughtered in conditions. Let me tell you about slaughter. You say that slaughter is always humane.
Yes,
I totally object to that because I know for a fact that it's almost never humane. You think about lambs going to slaughter. There was
spring lamb. I had a joint of that.
You stand outside a slaughterhouse. Most people don't even want to think about slaughter. They find it too horrific to even think about, yet to talk about. And the places that I've seen, there's a good reason for that. Every single slaughterhouse I've visited.
How many slaughterhouses have you visited, my dear, and where were they, and under whose regulations were they operating?
One of the most recent that I saw was a slaughterhouse that's in the Potteries, in fact. And
Can you name it?
No, I'm not going to name it for good reason.
Well, I'll tell you why, because each and every slaughterhouse
is subject
in those slaughterhouses, to the most stringent regulations.
What happens in those slaughterhouses is that animals like sheep, lambs, cows, pigs, they're supposed to be made unconscious before they're hung upside down by the back leg, they go along a conveyor belt, and then they have the throat slit. What happens all the time is that they're not made fully unconscious.
All the time,
they're hung upside down, they go to have the throat slit while they know exactly what's happening to them.
True.
There was a study done actually by the government on 10,000 lambs and sheep.
Can you quote this study, please?
Of course.
What's its title?
It was published in one of the veterinary journals.
Can we have the title?
And if you want the title, contact Viva. It's the charity that I run, and
see,
it's all referenced.
It's so easy to say there was a report and then you can't quote the title.
There was 10,000 sheep at 40 slaughterhouses throughout the UK.
Never.
The reason that they were looking at this is because they wanted to find out whether sheep indeed were unconscious when they had the throat slit.
And they are.
And they found that almost in every single case, they were not. There's a reason for this. Sheep, they put like tongs on either side of the head. They're supposed to put an electric shock through the brain. What the slaughterman does, they do not hold it on either side of the brain for long enough, so the sheep falls over. It's paralysed, but it's still fully conscious. It is then hung upside down by the back leg, and it goes along a conveyor belt. The slaughterman then slits the throat. Now, what this study said was that because the sheep was only paralysed, the electric shock wasn't strong enough or held on the head long enough to make the sheep unconscious. Went along the conveyor belt, and they knew everything that was happening to them. Now, some of the worst and most awful sights I've ever seen in my life, one that I will never, ever forget, was a cow that knew everything that was happening to us, totally fully conscious. She was struggling on the conveyor belt. They slit her throat, and then the slaughterman actually hacked her leg off and threw it away.
Well, I tell you what you should have done, my dear. If you saw this happening, my dear,
but every animal welfare organisation, it was reported. Every animal welfare organisation has seen this, has videoed it, and it's so easy to see. One of the other things, the worst thing I've ever seen, was in live export.
Well, I've had 45 years of the food and farming industry, and the things you are recounting here to me, my dear,
Holland, they go across
strike me as pure and adulterated fiction, if I may say so.
It's not fiction. I've seen it with my own eyes. Why do you think that I went vegetarian? I used to enjoy meat. I went vegetarian because I've seen it.
You are obviously a sincere young woman.
I am sincere because I've seen awful things. I don't mind you being a vegetarian.
Good luck to you. I had a plate of muesli for me breakfast this morning. I have vegetarian dishes from time to time, but what I do enjoy most of all, Sundays, when my wife opens the Aga, brings out the roasting tin, and in it is a 3-rib of roast beef with the beautiful roast beef.
BSE with the bloody juices and the antibiotics and the growth hormones. Yes, lovely.
Kicked to death by donkeys in Blackpool than have suffered any ill effects from enjoying a rich, rare rib of beef. And we take that out, my dear, and I get hold of the crust of a wholemeal loaf. Now, there's a nice vegetarian thing. A wholemeal loaf, the crust. And I get the crust and I put it round in all that rich, lovely brown gravy.
It's true that many people
and I've just come back from church as well.
But many people more die. What people are dying
of
with too many animal products is heart disease and cancers.
Well, look at me, my dear. I'm 69.
Did you know that even our government has said
that
if people go vegetarian, they'd reduce the cancer medical bill by half?
Absolute rubbish.
It's not rubbish. You cannot say that.
My good friend, Dr. Ian
eating too much meat and eating too many dairy products causes cancers.
We both enjoy our wine.
And it causes heart disease. You know why? No. Because it clogs up the arteries and the blood, it puts the pressure on the heart and it causes a heart attack.
Well, I should be due to go down with a heart attack here and now.
Well, you probably will.
Well, I might indeed, you know, then the wife will collect the insurance.
Going on the way that you are?
No.
What I'm talking about is the general population.
I may have said that before. Excellent.
It's easy to dismiss people's pain and suffering, but if you know someone with heart disease, they go up the stairs, they can't breathe, they don't feel fit, and most people actually have it within the power, within their own hands, to diminish that suffering. If you eat a diet that's high in things like fresh fruit and fresh veg and all the other wonderful vegetarian products...
But you can eat that as well, dear.
Hang on.
I've just consumed half a bowl of fruit in the dressing room here.
You can reduce...
Wonderful.
You can stop the clogging of your arteries. You can reduce that pain. But meat and dairy products actually cause that pain. They kill you early, too young.
I don't think there's anything wrong with my heart.
And you don't need to eat it.
I'm 69.
Look, you don't need to eat meat. You can be perfectly healthy on a vegetarian diet. What I'm talking about, for most people, you dismiss the cruelty and the suffering. You say it doesn't exist. But for most people want to be compassionate. They want to care. They don't want to see animals being cruelly treated.
I'm compassionate, dear.
Just let me tell you something
else. Put me in
a
garden with
You're
roses
not compassionate.
I'm as compassionate.
You're not compassionate.
As a tin of condensed milk. I am compassionate.
You cannot be. I don't think
I'm a family man. I've got a little boy of 4 years of age.
I don't think, for some reason, you managed to cut off cruelty to animals. For whatever reason. Let me give you another example of something that truly moved me to the very core. There was a bull going across on live export and he'd broken his pelvis.
You want to watch bulls, they're dangerous.
This went on national television, in fact, and rocked the whole nation.
And we'll believe everything we see on national telly.
Oh, you think they deliberately broke this bull's pelvis?
I don't know.
If I can just finish.
Yes,
the bull was on the boat, broken his pelvis, he couldn't move, so he was trying to get up onto his front legs. The men who were trying to move him used electric shocks on his testicles to move him. They went on for half an hour doing this.
That would be very painful.
30 minutes of this bull crying out in absolute agony.
But where was this done? Was this done in England?
This goes on day in, day out.
Was it done in England?
This happened to British animals going out to France, to Spain, to Egypt, to Greece, and to Asia.
Country.
What happens in Asia? Nonsense. What happens in Africa? God alone knows. These are British animals going out. You cannot say it doesn't happen in Britain. British slaughterhouses are cruel. Another example of British.
Where did it happen?
Good old Britain. It was a boat going out from Britain out to Greece.
Yes, but from which port what date?
It's
who was
irrelevant.
responsible?
It's irrelevant. It was a British animal.
I can
it was
make
a British
any sort
animal.
of blanket statement.
If you want to
if
stop...
I say I've broken a bull's leg, I've got to say what sort of bullet
pelvis.
was, where that bull's leg was broken, and why, and how it was broken. And this just would not happen in this country.
Oh, this is nonsense.
The whole transport of animals in this country.
Just about everybody knows that live transport of animals
the veterinary
is incredibly cruel, that it's not regulated at all. It's totally unregulated.
We people connected with the food industry, dear, we're not a bunch of sadists.
Well,
we're a kindly bunch. Farmer
You're not
Giles
a kindly
figures.
bunch. You're not. You're into money. You want to make money at every last thing. You do not care about human health. Hence BSE. You do not care about human health. You do not care about animals. You do not care about the environment. Animal farmers have ripped up the British hedgerows enough to cover the earth 4 times over. They've destroyed 90% of our ponds. They've destroyed all our forests.
4 times over.
They've destroyed. They're the major polluters of water in the world. And they use most of the water. There are billions of farm animals.
I'm getting a sense of conscience now, dear, because
listen,
I don't like sort of putting the truth to you like this.
I don't want to talk over you.
I'd like to sort of convert you, open your eyes to see the realities of the food production.
That's the problem. My eyes have been opened.
Oh, dear me, but you've seen some false prophets in this business. You honestly have. I'll tell you what we do when we finish this program. I'll take you out and let's have a nice rump steak apiece, or 2 or 3 pork chops with some roast potatoes, and all right, we'll have some green beans, some spinach and spaghetti, and we'll wash it down with a good bottle of Beaujolais.
Eating meat, it destroys the environment en masse. It's cruel to animals.
How does it destroy the animals?
It's cruel to animals and it destroys health.
Manure. And there
Whatever
we get the natural manure to put back. If there wasn't any animals, there wouldn't be any natural manure.
And you don't care.
Both ways.
You don't care about the welfare of those animals, because if you did, you would make less money out of them. That's all it comes down to at the end of the day. Factory farming is about making money out of animals. It is cruel and it is disgusting.
Well, all right.
And nothing can
Factory
justify
production of sparking plugs is after making money out of the motor industry.
They are not living creatures with feelings. They are not living, feeling, sentient creatures.
It is intensive, kindly livestock production.
Nothing is kind about caging animals and not allowing them any freedom.
Compassion, my dear.
No compassion.
Compassion in farming.
It's institutionalised cruelty with no compassion at all.
I'm sorry, dear. I cannot really agree with you on that one. I can't really. It isn't. The farmer is possibly the last bastion of kindly compassion towards livestock that we have in this country.
The farmers show no compassion to livestock.
The British farmer is the salt of the earth.
Farmers send their animals to slaughter in the most inhumane, disgusting conditions. They send them to export to abroad to be killed in the most disgusting conditions. And they keep them here in the most disgusting conditions.
I have friends.
There are billions of animals, farm animals, on this planet. Yes. Land has to be used worldwide to grow feed for those animals. To do that, we have destroyed the forests, we have destroyed our waterways, we have overfished the oceans.
Have we destroyed?
Half of the world's oceans.
Which forests in England have we destroyed?
Excuse me, half of the world's oceans are on the point of environmental collapse because they have been overfished.
I live on the shores of the North Sea. It's sea houses. There's no sign of the North Sea.
In the North Sea, mackerel cannot even be fished anymore.
My boat's floating in it while I'm away from it.
Mackerel has been so overfished, there are none left in the North Sea.
Mackerel's a dirty fish to eat anyhow.
Cod is going to be extinct within 5 years because we have overfished them. This is a terrible, frightening problem. We're destroying the ecology of the oceans just for what? A product we don't need to eat. Whatever you farmers touch, you destroy. You destroy the oceans, you destroy the environment, you've destroyed the rainforest for beef cattle, for burgers. You've destroyed over half of the rainforest of the earth. You're destroying the waterways. Did you know that the major waterways of the earth are almost dried up because they're being used to water animals?
There's been floods in Spain that have swept away caravan parks.
Something that really worries me. It sounds terribly dramatic.
The Ganges in India, where I believe there are rainforests,
are dried up. They're dried up. They are drying up. The great rivers of the world.
They don't initiate a program of conservation of water resources.
Because they are destroying the land to grow feed to farm animals, which people then eat.
Which farm animals?
If we continue to do this, there will be no there will be no waterways left. There will be no forests left.
You've got it wrong, my dear.
Listen,
honestly.
I am the director of Viva, a national charity.
I've never heard of Viva,
to find
quite
out more
honestly.
about this, they should
I
contact
could say
us.
I'm a Seventh-day
Because
Adventist
these
or whatever,
issues are so vital. They're so
they
important.
And
people
it's very
have to
good.
do something
It's
about
very
it.
good that young
Going
women like
vegetarian
you
is
have
a
a conscience.
positive
You've got to
step.
have a conscience.
It's a positive step about saving the environment, saving animals, and saving your own health.
But it's only by listening. It's only by listening.
It's vital
to
that people
like
stand up
myself
and listen and actually do something.
Kindly, who will listen to the other person's point of view.
But you're not listening.
You listen to me, my dear.
You're not listening to anything.
I'm not saying I'm 100% right. I'm probably 99.9% right, my dear. But we'll have a chat later on.
No,
and I'll attempt
you
to
spent
let
this
you
entire
see
programme
just how kindly and compassionate, I'm using those two words again.
Well, you're not.
The whole of the British food industry is. Believe me, it is.
You're a man that agrees with battery farming. Almost all of Britain disagrees with you. You are a cruel man. You agree with cruelty. You're not compassionate.
I don't think I am. I wouldn't say I was a cruel
Anybody
man,
who agrees with caging animals like that.
The animals,
does not
the
have
hens,
a heart.
they're comfortable. They're sitting
They're not comfortable.
Going,
why do so many die in the cages then? Who? Why do they peck each other to death? Because they're frustrated and they're bored. Why do you chop their beaks off when they're chicks?
Well, I didn't know we did chop the beaks off, quite frankly.
Well, it seems it happens throughout the industry. You don't know much about the own industry, do you?
I'm always open. I'm always open to learn something, dear. You're never too old to learn.
They debeak the birds.
But if you want eggs 365 days of the year...
I don't want eggs 365 days.
Yeah, but a lot of people do. The customers
I don't
of the
think people
supermarkets
do want eggs treated in such cruel conditions. I really don't think people do.
Once they know the
truth,
how are you going to get the eggs from the free... I mean, we keep coming back to these chickens. How do you get the eggs from the free-range flocks at 360? How do you get eggs at Christmas from them when the north wind's blowing up their backsides?
You know what they do? They chop through their beaks. It's called debeaking. And the beak, they used to say it's just like the nail. They don't feel anything.
Well, it is quite.
But it's not.
It's the same horn.
It's not. It's actually, it's got the most sensitive organ of the bird.
I'd like to...
Excuse me, because it has got the nerve endings in the beak.
Oh.
It's a sensitive organ. They use it to find food and all the rest of it. And they chop right through the nerve endings. Those chicks, a lot of them die of shock and they die of bleeding.
I've never heard of a chicken dying from shock but through having its beak. The top beak protrudes slightly over the bottom beak.
Even the British government's own Animal Welfare Council has said that it's wrong and it should be banned. Yeah. But it still has not been. This happens every day.
If you think it should
let's look at something else.
Initiate the legislation through Parliament. And let Parliament decide, not bigoted pressure groups like yourself.
And who do you think puts the pressure on to stop this cruelty, if not pressure groups?
But you've got to,
if you do it in
a democratic, if you do it in a democratic way, that's
fair enough. Do you think the farmers are going to tell the public the truth?
I'll tell you this, the farmers don't go to the streets and go around rampaging and knackering about and breaking into butchers' shops like some of these pressure groups that are animal welfare people do.
No, what farmers do.
They resort to physical violence. I mean, look how they attack the poor huntsmen who are keeping down the foxes.
That's absolutely nonsense. What farmers do are physically violent to animals. What you do is disgusting, quite frankly.
Look, I've got a dog, I've got 2 cats, I had a spaniel, a gun dog.
Something else that made me go vegetarian and stay vegetarian.
Something
else that made me go vegetarian and stay was I went into a couple of pig units, and I went to one very recently, actually about 4 months ago. A place owned, in fact, it's a show place used for farmers.
Yes.
You went in there, these pigs are kept in this huge shed, and they're in these narrow stalls. They're about 2 inches away from each other, but they cannot touch each other.
Now, how long ago was this? Because the best way to keep pigs...
If I could just describe what I've seen instead of talking over me all the time.
Is in large containers, large barns,
speak. You might not like the truth, but at least want to tell
3 foot of straw.
That is not the way they're kept. These pigs couldn't turn round.
Bacon.
Couldn't even turn round.
Never.
Because some of them couldn't lie down. They're kept there throughout the pregnancy. These are the breeding stock.
Yes.
When they have the piglets...
Have you ever considered it might be because the pregnant sow needs supporting. Oh my
goodness me.
And this is a kindness to the pregnant sow.
So if you kept a pregnant dog in a tiny cage, you'd say, you're supporting the dog, we need to support it.
To its lovely little piglets, it could roll over and squash them to death.
Absolute
nonsense. And that would be cruel, my dear.
The reason that you do it is to keep as many pigs as possible in the smallest space as possible and make as much money as possible out of those animals.
The way you
that
keep
is the only reason you do it.
You keep pigs in as natural environment as possible, I say, in yards with straw, you keep them happy.
Hardly any pigs are kept like that.
The pigs that I know are, and they're happy, grunty little animals, and they've got their own little dunging pens outside, and they have a very, very happy life.
Pigs are very sociable animals, don't you? I mean, pigs are very sociable
animals. Pigs are. Some people even keep Vietnam pot-bellied pigs.
As pets.
I mean, they might keep Vietnam pot-bellied Bill Weekses as pets, but I don't think you would, dear.
They're very sociable, they're intelligent,
yes,
they're highly
if you like them
creatures.
going around the house. I mean, I'd prefer to have our little Jack Russell Terrier now with 2 pussycats.
Well, you prefer your dog because you like to think, well, let's make as much money out of farm animals and kill them and treat them the way we want. Well, I don't want to do that to my dog. But what I'm saying is,
money, dear.
what I'm saying is, there's no difference really between your dog and that pig. Why on the one hand?
Well, there is. I mean, a pig's got a snout that goes oink, 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 and our Jack Russell that goes bow wow when I go in. There's a bit of difference. I mean, if you cannot tell the difference between a dog and a pig, dear, I think some of your other ideas might be somewhat at variance.
Slightly missing the point. What I'm trying to say is that a dog is an intelligent animal, very sociable.
So
if you kept that dog in a small cage throughout its pregnancy, denied it any freedom, it couldn't even lie down standing in its own filth.
Our dog?
Throughout its life.
Well, thank God it hasn't been pregnant yet, because...
You would be prosecuted for cruelty, wouldn't you?
Yes, indeed.
Of course you would.
And so would the farmer who's doing what you're saying.
Do the same to the pig, and that is just accepted as normal, because it's just institutionalised.
Look,
I don't think that factory farming should be even legal.
Or conform, I should say, to the most rigorous anti-cruelty regulations. And the inspectors can walk into any farm any time of the day and night and have a look at the ways in which these animals are kept. And most of them are kept in very, very comfortable, happy conditions.
No, they're not. They're kept in disgusting conditions.
I don't think so, dear. I mean, I've had a lot of experience going on pig
Why do you
farms.
think so many people are giving up meat? Why do you think there are so many
I
millions of vegetarians in Britain?
I really don't know. Quite frankly, it certainly hasn't affected our family.
It's because people are opening their eyes to the reality of modern farming. They do not want to be cruel to animals. Also, they don't want to jeopardise their own health or the environment.
But
that is why they're going vegetarian.
Their own health. They're not jeopardising the environment.
Of course they are.
I mean, you get protein from a meat animal. From an animal. Meat, yes. It contains all the amino acids needed for healthy life. Now, if you're going to have it, can I pour that out for you, my dear? I'm not such a monster as you like to point. Could you pour me one, please? That's very kind of you. I mean, if you're going to have a vegetarian diet, you've got to say, have 2 different types of vegetables and eat them together to get the balance of amino acids you need to build up a proper protein framework for
all the things that protect
you. You get all the amino acids you need in meat.
All the things that protect your health from about 60 or so diseases are in fresh fruit and fresh vegetables.
But
meat doesn't protect your health.
No.
It causes cancers and it causes heart disease. It's one of the biggest killers in the entire world, and people are just beginning to realise this. I didn't go vegetarian because of health, but having worked for Viva and looked at all the medical papers almost throughout the world, you come to the conclusion...
How can you look at all the medical papers from throughout the world? You make these blanket statements. What I'm saying is, I don't object to you being a vegetarian.
Because as a national organisation, we get hold of these papers.
I love eating vegetables, and I also eat meat. I wouldn't try and say to you, you must give up eating vegetables. You must give up eating fruit.
I'm not telling you.
You've got to have a meat-only diet.
I'm not telling you must do anything. I'm just saying accept the truth.
The truth, my dear, is a very nebulous thing.
Forever.
Adolf Hitler thought he had the truth. I mean,
look,
I always like to look at any argument in a simple, dispassionate manner.
You have made
money. The pros
you
and
make
the
money out of farming animals, so you're not going to accept the truth no matter what that truth is.
Sorry?
You've made money out of farming animals, so you won't accept the truth.
I've made money out of farming animals.
You're bound not to accept the truth. But there was a study in the USA, the US government has now accepted. They said vegetarians enjoy...
What is this study, my dear? Who's published it?
I'm about to tell you. If you stop interrupting every second, it's painful.
Well, of course, they
looked at over. Well, that's why you won't let me speak. They looked at over 100 studies, and they found that vegetarians get up to 57% less heart disease. They get up to 50% less of all the cancers.
Do they really?
Yes, they do. I mean, this is quite
whatever you say, my dear, I'm still sticking to me beef bread and me burgundy.
You stick to whatever you want. You stick to whatever you want, but don't try and stop people from finding out the truth.
I'm not. The more they attempt to find out the truth, the better it is, and the more they'll come down and support my constructive arguments and criticism.
to tonight's 10 by 10 film is a disturbing and graphic portrait that draws a fine line between the hunter and the hunted.